Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about using a waterfall technique to calculate things like depreciation. So in my control accounts video, I used this page as my example, and depreciation was already calculated below. So today I'm going to go into the detail of how that was calculated and the way that it's set up. So the important things we have here are our capex by year along here, and our depreciation profile, which in this case is just set up to be a 5-year straight line depreciation. But this could of course be as complicated as you like, double declining balance, for example, or any other depreciation profile. The profile could also take into account the cash flow timings. So depreciating by a full fifth in year one implies that my cash flow is happening at the beginning of the year. If you were assuming mid-period, then you would start with a 10% depreciation in period 1, then 4 periods of 20, and then a final period of 10. Obviously, we want this to add up to 100 unless it goes out beyond the length of my model. So, I've started with the answers there, that's helpful. So what I want to do is I'm going to take each year's capex independently, calculate the depreciation for it, and then add up all those bits of depreciation to get my total. So what I've done is I've created my time series down the page here, and I've created a counter. So we've got our counter along the top from 1 to 10, and we've got the same counter down the side. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure we get the shape of the answers right. So for example, this £3,000 here happens in 2020. So there obviously can't be any depreciation before that year. So we're going to have this sort of upper triangle shape. And creating that is where the counters come in. So I'm going to quickly put in an if statement. So equals if. And so I know that in this bottom left, I don't want any numbers. So if I look at the counters, this bottom left, I've got big numbers on my counter here and small numbers on my counter here. So I know that if my left counter is greater than my top counter, I want the answer to be 0. Otherwise, I'm going to do my calc. Now, something I always do is just for no reason other than it's unlikely to crop up too often naturally, I just put in 111. So when I see that, I know I've not finished my formula yet. So that is the exact shape I was interested in. These 3 years, for example, don't get any depreciation for my 3,000. So now we need to complete our formula. So my 15,000 is going to depreciate by 20% in period 1, 20% in period 2, 20% in period 3. So that's quite easy. The one we have to be careful about is when we get to the next year. So this 5,000 doesn't depreciate at all in year 1, but it's going to depreciate by 20% in period 2. Now the important thing to notice is that it's depreciating by this 20%, not the one above. So this label is really important. These are periods relative to the year of capex. They're not associated with the column that they're in. So if we come into the formula here and get rid of the ones, I'm going to multiply my capex for the row, multiply by the correct percentage from my depreciation profile. Now in order to get that, for the first row it would work if I just multiplied by this. But as I was saying, when we come to this next row, I can't multiply by the one above, which becomes obvious as you get further down because the first year of depreciation can never be 0. So instead of multiplying by that straight away, I'm going to multiply by an index across this range. So I need to lock that in place. Now, how do we get the correct percentage from this range? Well, what we do is we compare the counters again. So when these counters are the same, I know I must be in period 1. when this counter is 1 bigger than the one on the side, I must be in period 2. So to pick up the right percentage, I need to do the top counter minus the side counter. Now in this case that would be 1 minus 1, which gives 0. So I need to add 1 to get back to 1. So you can imagine as that moves across, we're going to be doing 2 minus 1 is 1, plus 1 is 2, and that's going to give me the second answer. So I can close my index, Control Enter, and there's our depreciation profile. So each of these, of course, adding up to the total capex, and a single formula correctly picking up that these 5 years of depreciation start in 2020 and last for 5 years. Now the only thing I've missed there is that I need my depreciation to be negative, so I'm just going to put a minus sign in there, and that's it. That's our depreciation. So waterfall technique, all about the clear layout, very clear visually if you've got it right, and really good use of not only one counter that we normally have, but an additional counter on the side of the page, comparing the two to let me know how far I am through the life of that capex. Thanks folks, I'm Duke, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.